learning to write an email, like a lot of times someone applies for a job and they say like, oh, I guess I suck because like no one hired me. And what they don't realize is that no one even looked at your reel because you didn't write the email right. Like there's a whole process. And the more empathy you have, the more you can put yourself in the shoes of the other person, the more you might actually realize like they are busy. Let's say with hiring people, like most supervisors at a studio, let's say you're the head of 3D, that's your department. Hiring people is usually not your job description. You don't wake up every day like, oh, who am I going to hire today? It's how do I prevent fires all over the office and make sure everyone's happy and not quitting and, all these other things. And then on my lunch break, I might be looking at some reels, So the more that you can put yourselves in the shoes of the other person and understand them, not only can you communicate that to make them feel understood, which goes a long way. When someone says, hey, I realize that you're probably busy with deadlines and blah, 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 blah. If I can just take a few seconds of your time, that person is right away going to be like, okay, this person gets me, opposed to like, hey, here's my reel. Why, then it's like, why haven't you replied? I've had people angrily comments all over my social media saying, why haven't you replied to my email? I hate you. The first time I ever went to Weta, like first time I walked through the doors of Weta, as I was opening the door, this American guy yanked the door open, recognized me, and started yelling at me, saying that 2 years ago he emailed me and I never replied. And like I genuinely thought he was going to hit me. Like this was how angry he was. And that was my first experience walking through the doors of that place was that. And that's when I realized maybe I should reply to every email just in case.
Just to be safe.
But it is it's such an important thing is to think about that. Like SIGGRAPH was last week, and I spoke on a panel about career stuff, and that was something that came up a lot. Was the fact that if someone applies for a job, like it doesn't mean that your reel is ever going to get looked at. It doesn't mean a lot of things, but it's more about making sure, like, okay, make sure my email subject line is something they're going to click on. Make sure that the email is compelling enough and doesn't waste their time. It's clear what I'm applying for, who I am. The more that you put the effort in, the more that it's going to mean that they probably will read it. And then hopefully if they read it, then they might click on the link. Hopefully if they click on the link, they'll actually watch the whole reel. Because that's another thing people think is that just because I send them my reel, obviously they're going to watch the whole thing. And I've had a few people argue with me on YouTube about that, where they say, because I've tried to explain how volatile the reel review process is, that we'll have a spreadsheet of 100 people and we're looking to hire 2. So we're looking for an excuse to click on the next reel, like to skip it. So as soon as there's a bad shot, we're going to move to the next one. And I've had like 1 or 2 people say like, Alan, that's ridiculous. Like, if I send them my reel, of course they're going to watch the whole thing. It makes no sense why they would, why they would not watch my whole reel. And it's like, well, when you've got an hour and you've got 100 reels and most of them are 5 minutes long, do the math. So everyone's got their own ideas in their head of how things are, but they're not necessarily how they actually are.
Yeah, it's the problem with this internet or discussion a lot of times. Also, like in terms of like pipeline planning, or sometimes a lot of times I have to tell people like, this is not how things work. This is not how reality is. I'm the first one who is called optimist, literally. I had it so many times. Alex, you're too optimistic. Alex, you're too optimistic. No, this is what I want. Everything else I don't accept. But a lot of times, like on the internet, people like, this is how things are. And they don't think about, for example, I remember there was one with a resume and it was a Maya interface. The whole resume was literally like a Maya interface, the paper form, but Maya. And I was like, this is the worst. It looks cool, but this is the worst. No HR person in the world wants to print this shit out. And that's what they do. They will print it out, and then like if you kill their printer, or maybe it doesn't even print it out because there's not enough colors or whatever, they will hate it. And this is where people are so engrossed in some minor details that are extremely unimportant that they forget the like reality and how things actually like work in terms of like where's the priority of the person on the other side, not mine, because for me everything is important that I do.
How do I make it easy for them?
Exactly.
How do I make it easy for them to hire me? Putting my phone number on the resume is actually a way to get hired, because there's so many times where we've wanted to hire someone, and by the time they reply to the email, it's like, oh, we already picked up the phone and hired someone an hour later. So again, like the more that you think, okay, who is my competition? In other words, like, I'm not the only person on the planet applying for a job.
Yes.
Also, what are they really looking for? Because that was one thing that we said in the SIGGRAPH thing. I was saying, don't call yourself a particle ninja. Don't call yourself like a pipeline god or whatever. Because the thing is that the person who's actually looking at the resume probably doesn't live and breathe. They don't know what Maya looks like. They're looking to fill a certain thing. They're, let's say, a recruiter, and they're looking for a very specific pipeline technical director. And then you come along and you're like, I'm a pipeline ninja. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, we're looking for a pipeline TD. I guess you're not that. You need to tick the box. And that's all people are trying to do, is tick the box and move on to the next person on the big long list of people they got to hire. So they're not trying to get all smart. It's not about being clever. It's about being intelligent. So I think this is such a critical thing, is the more you put yourself in the shoes of the other person, the more you can understand, okay, here are all the other people applying. They're probably doing this. What can I do better? How can I make myself stand out? What is going to make it easier for the other person? How do I make it clear? How are they going to misunderstand? All the things that you start to think about, it's going to make you better at doing that thing. And it's the same thing if we're talking pipeline, it'd be, how are they going to break the tool? What are the dumb things they're going to do? The more that you start thinking about that, that's when you start to really kind of get into the head of like, well, how do I make this not only do the thing it's meant to do? Because one thing which I'm sure you would get a lot is, well, let's just automate the whole process. And it's like, oh yeah, that sounds great until you want to do something slightly different. And the whole thing is like literally A to F, and they have no control in between. But if you make it phasic and make it, you click this button and then you click the next one, you can deviate at button 3 and you can do something slightly different.
You are listening to the 21 Artist Show, a podcast that inspires creatives to make meaningful content to pursue their passions. I'm talking with creators, artists, and engineers about their careers, lessons they have learned, and how to make an impact. I'm your host, Alexander Richter. I'm a technical director and coach in visual effects, animation, and games. For more content, go to 21artistshow.com. Enjoy the show.